You don't just think, oh, I'm having a cookie, I'm having a handful of chips. You think, what if this turns into the whole sleeve? What if this turns into the whole bag? You think, what if this turns into an entire week of eating like absolute crap? Hello and welcome back to another new episode of Emotional Eating Unwrapped. Today I want to talk about a part of emotional overeating that I don't think gets talked about enough. And we're going to talk today about the aftermath of overeating. For so many women, the hardest part is not actually the eating. We think it's about the urgency. We think it's about the craving. We think it's about the actual moment that we gave in. But a lot of times it's not actually about that. That's not the thing that we need to try to focus on and fix. And once you understand what the driver really is for fixating on food and fixating on trying to fix this, these feelings that come up inside of you about food, you're going to start to see what it's really about. And it really is the first step towards making real long-term change. So I hope you'll stick with me. And before we dive in, welcome back. Again, my name is Alana Kessler. I'm a registered dietitian, certified functional nutritionist. I love everything about the nervous system, the brain-body connection. And I'm here to help you really understand your body and learn to love it instead of fighting it every day. And so if you've ever had the thought, like, why can't I just eat this thing and move on? Why do I keep obsessing over it? Why do I keep fixating on it? This episode is going to be for you. So let's dive in. I'm going to get right into it. The first reason is because you don't trust the guilt afterwards. You don't trust the guilt you're going to feel afterwards. And sometimes the reason why you're doing so much math, right? So much calculating before you eat is because you already are thinking to yourself how guilty you're going to feel afterwards. And that's the part that's invisible to people that are eating with you, invisible to people that see you eat, that know you, that have assumptions about your relationship with food. They see you staring at the menu. They see you saying, I don't know, maybe I'll just get like something light today. Maybe I'll just get an app. Maybe I'll just get 2 apps, right? Like they see you being like, I don't know, does anybody want to split this with me? Maybe I'll split the fries with you. We'll split, whatever it is. They see you acting like you're just deciding in a very casual, normal way what's good. But inside, you have a whole other conversation that is going on within yourself, right? Like you're thinking to yourself, what did I eat earlier? Did I already have carbs today? Am I going to regret this? Will I feel gross after I eat this? Can I make this fit into like my eating structure? Maybe I should just be good and not get this now, right? Like maybe I should just make the right decision. And the reason that this decision feels so intense and has so much charge and energy behind it is because you're not just choosing a food to eat. You're trying to choose and you're trying to protect a version of you that won't feel guilty later. Right? That's why like a salad or, just like something super light can feel safe even if you don't want it, right? That's why choosing pasta or pizza can feel risky even if you're like starving and you're hungry for it. And it's actually like, it's something that you want. And that's why menus can sometimes feel super overwhelming and make you feel like you're like, doing a Scantron test and making you feel like you're being graded on it. Because a lot of times it's not as simple as what do I want? Really, what the question that your subconscious is asking is, what can I eat that won't make me hate myself later? And that is a really heavy question. That's a lot to bring to a lunch, right? That is a lot to bring to, your casual Wednesday night dinner at the local restaurant with your friends or your coworkers, right? That's a lot to bring to just a bread roll or a small dessert brownie. So if you find yourself doing this type of math calculations, I don't want you to just think, I'm obsessed with food. I'm fixating on food. Right? Why am I fixating on food? I want you to go a little bit deeper and realize that the answer you're actually asking is, what am I afraid I'm going to feel after this? Because a lot of the time, the answer is guilt, right? It's not, oh, I'm going to feel too full, or I'm going to, it's not about the food. It's about the fear of feeling the guilt. And of course, if guilt is something that you have felt after meals for decades, years, of course your brain is going to try to plan around that. Of course it tries to prevent it. And of course it starts doing things where it makes you feel like you're going to prioritize the safest choice, just because we are hardwired to survive, to avoid something that's going to bring us pain. So what we're trying to do is not learn how to fit pasta or pizza into a meal, right? That's not what we're learning to do. We're learning how to be with ourselves after we eat that, right? After we eat the thing that we're afraid might make us feel guilty, how can we learn to be with ourselves and move through that experience? And that's where the work gets deeper, but that's where you get the freedom, okay? Because if you can eat something and not immediately go into this adversarial relationship with yourself afterwards, or this fearful, guilt-ridden relationship with yourself afterwards, this is how food starts to lose some of its power. This is how we stop thinking that we're fixated on food and we're obsessed with food, and we start to realize, no, food isn't really that powerful. The second thing is, you don't trust the spiral that's going to come, right? You think that, meaning like you think that a spiral is going to come after, right? So it's like one bite of something doesn't just feel like one bite. It feels like the beginning of something. You don't just think, oh, I'm having a cookie, I'm having a handful of chips, right? You think, what if this turns into the whole sleeve? What if this turns into the whole bag? You don't just think to yourself, oh, I'm going to have like a personal pizza tonight or a bowl of gnocchi tonight. You think, what if this turns into an entire week of eating like absolute crap? Right? You're thinking about like the worst case scenario where you lose complete self-control. And that's a really scary place to be eating from, because now food isn't just food, right? Food isn't just this substance anymore. Food now starts to feel like a gateway drug, right? It starts to feel like once you unlock that door and you start walking through it, you will go down some sort of sinkhole and you'll never be able to get out again, right? So I've had a bunch of clients share with me examples of this. Like they can't keep certain foods in the house because they're just afraid that if they have one of it, they're going to have the entire thing, right? People who don't feel like, they think it's just one little tiny bit is going to become this entire negative spiral that goes on and on and on and lasts a really, really long time, right? Other women have expressed to me that it ends up becoming like this hypervigilance, right? Where you have the first bite and then now all of a sudden your brain starts going into monitoring yourself, right? Like, is this okay? Like, do I want more? Am I losing control? Is this the beginning, right? Like it turns on this trigger of monitoring and of hypervigilance. And so you're not even experiencing the eating anymore. You're not even in the experience. You're observing yourself in the experience. You're watching yourself eat. You're supervising yourself while you eat, right? Because you're trying to catch the spiral before it happens. And this is why, when we talk about things like moderation. It's like the goal is to just learn how to keep food in the house and eat in moderation. And it's why that can feel frustrating, because this is just limited to the actual eating experience. But the thing is, it's not that you don't understand what moderation is, right? In theory, you know what being moderate's about. You know, it's like it's 2 cookies or, a portion size of chips, right? You know what moderation is. It's just that you don't trust your body in the after of that, right? You don't trust that giving in to moderation, even because you know what it is, will feel safe, will stay safe, right? You don't trust that giving yourself this permission to enjoy, that it won't turn into a panic that ends up hijacking your entire mood and day, right? You don't necessarily trust that one bite is going to just stay one bite or one cookie. And you might just go into like, F it, I ruined it. I might as well just keep going. And a lot of times this happens, this type of fear of the future, right? Like this future tripping with this. A lot of times this happens if you have a history of restricting, of, starting over multiple times with diets after being good for a while, then losing control, making, bargaining with yourself with promises, making promises to yourself, then not keeping them, feeling ashamed, right? Your brain starts to link certain foods with this entire psychological, emotional cycle, right? So it's not just about the food itself, it's about the whole cycle. So I want to just name this very clearly. You're not afraid of wanting food, right? You're not afraid of wanting food. You are afraid of not being able to come back to yourself, to feel calm within yourself once you start. That is the big wound, right? It's not about appetite or hunger, fullness, right? It's the fear that once you open the gate, right? Once you open the door, you won't be able to come back out. So it's not about forcing yourself or getting yourself to prove to yourself that you could be around food, right? It's rebuilding that part that knows I can want this, I can have this, I can enjoy this, and I can still stay connected with myself. I could still stay above ground. I'm not going to fall into a sinkhole and disappear into some sort of spiral that leads to nowhere. That is very different than just control and understanding moderation and understanding the logistics of eating, right? This is about trust. So I'm going to go into the last one, but before I do, I just want to remind you that if you are listening to us on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, please give us a like, a subscribe, a 5-star review, a 5-star rating. Please share this episode or any of our episodes with anybody that might benefit from it. It really helps us get more juice in the algorithm, helps the platform share our episodes a little bit more. And so if you feel so inclined, please do that. Thank you so much. And let's move on to the last piece I'm going to talk about. You've built a good life. From the outside, it looks like you have it all together. You eat clean, you work hard, you take care of everyone. But there's this one area that still feels impossible to master, and that is food. You can eat perfectly all day and still end up in the kitchen at night wondering why you keep doing this. You promise yourself you'll start fresh tomorrow, and I know you mean it every single time. But the cycle, it always finds its way back, especially when you're stressed, when you're overwhelmed, or when you're just tired of being the one that's holding it all together. And I get it because I lived that way for years. And what I learned is this. The problem, it was never about food. It was the pressure underneath it, the perfectionism, the self-doubt, the part of me that never felt safe and secure to just be me. And that's why I created the sober eating sequence. It's a proven 3-phase method that rewires the emotional patterns and the belief systems driving overeating so you can relax, trust yourself around food, and release weight completely naturally, without force and without obsession. Because when your body feels secure, it lets go. The cravings quiet, The self-punishment, it softens. And food, it stops being the thing that you have to fix. This is not another plan. This isn't another rule book. It's a revolutionary transformation for your nervous system, for your body, and for your identity. So join the sober eating movement today. The last piece is you don't trust the feeling in your body afterwards. Okay, so it's not so much about the food. It's you don't trust the feeling in your body afterwards, the body checking. You know the routine, right? You eat the thing, and then you're suddenly touching your stomach. You're looking in the mirror. You're tucking your shirt in and out. You're pulling your shirt away from your body. You might even be the kind of person that goes to try on your pants to see if they fit. You're checking your face to see that it looks different. If it's bloated, you're standing sideways. You keep pressing your stomach in, right? You're looking for proof that the food, quote unquote, did something to you. And logically, you may know that one meal did not change your body in 10 minutes, but emotionally, it can feel like it did. And that's what makes this so challenging, because the fear is not always, will this food change my body? Sometimes the fear is, will I feel unsafe in my body after I eat this? And those two things are not the same thing, right? Because you know that it probably won't change your body, but you can feel unsafe in your body afterwards, right? So if you're someone who, feels good, totally fine before dinner, eat something you enjoyed, and, but then you suddenly can't stop body checking, right? That's an example of what I'm talking about. Or the second you get home from dinner, you're standing in the mirror, maybe you're trying on clothes that had fit you yesterday just to make sure that they fit the same today. Or maybe even were tight on you yesterday, a little bit tight on you. And now you're going to be like, oh, they're even tighter, right? To give you evidence. And so if that's you, I want you to know that this doesn't really have anything to do with vanity. This isn't really about being vain about your image or about your looks, really. It just means that your body has become the place where your fear now lives. The eating part happens, but the fear isn't about the food. The fear now goes to the body. And then again, the body becomes the evidence that you messed up, right? That you lost control, that you actually cannot be trusted around food. And this is why emotional eating and recovery from emotional overeating and compulsive eating with food, it can't just be about food. Because if you learn to eat the food, right? If you logically learn to eat the food, but then still attack your body afterwards, you still have this, again, difficult relationship with your body afterwards, your nervous system still does not feel safe, right? You're still living in the punishment, right? You're not restricting yourself from the food anymore, but you're still living in the punishment. It just moved from the plate, from the food, to now the mirror. And I know that might sound intense, but I want to bring it up because I know a lot of women, and I was one of those women that used to live with this secretly, right? Even when I had a better relationship with food, I felt less urgent around food. I didn't feel like I was overcome by an intense desire to eat an entire thing. And I got over the guilt. I got over the spiral. I still had this, this feeling of punishing myself in the mirror afterwards, right? This negative self-talk, right? I still had that. And I think a lot of women still have that as well, right? So you're not just trying to eat like a normal person. You're trying to eat like a normal person and not turn on yourself afterwards too. And that's the deeper part of it. That's the more layered part of it, right? Can I eat dinner, quote unquote, normally and, not turn on myself afterwards, not look for the damage that this dinner did to my body? Can I feel full and satisfied and not panic? Right? Because freedom around food, it's not just eating the substance of the food. It's not just eating the thing. It's actually also not punishing yourself or putting yourself through these mental gymnastics and these emotional gymnastics afterwards. So when we talk about food fixation, I don't want you to only think about the food thoughts, right? The thoughts and the focus on food. Because yes, the thoughts are real. The mental math and the calorie calculations are real. The cravings and the guilt are real. But for so many women, the bigger thing is the after. Right? Can I trust myself after I eat? Can I trust myself after I feel full? Can I trust myself after I want more and have more? Because if the answer is no, your brain is going to fixate on the food to prevent the meal from happening, right? It's going to calculate, it's going to negotiate, it's going to obsess, it's going to do all these things. And it's not because the food is the actual, villain here. It's because the after feels unsafe. Because once you see that, getting to the other side and actually feeling free becomes so much more compassionate, right? It feels lighter to be able to do this, right? You stop asking yourself, how do I stop thinking and obsessing and focusing and fixating on food? And you start asking yourself, how do I make myself and how do I get to a place with myself where I feel safe after the food happens? How do I eat and not shame myself? How do I enjoy without bracing myself for punishment after? This is the real work of it, right? It's not about becoming perfect around food. It's not about never thinking about food. It's not even about eating the right thing every time. It's learning to be with yourself, stay with yourself afterwards. The woman who feels free and has trust with herself around food isn't a woman who never has a messy moment with food, didn't make a choice that she feels not great about. Right? It's the woman who knows how to come back to herself and create a compassionate moment with herself instead of turning it into some war with herself. All right, so if you heard yourself in this episode and you feel like, you know what, I'd love to have, a step-by-step tactical directions for how to apply this type of stuff. That is what I do in my sober eating sequence. And it is a step-by-step self-guided coaching and accountability program for women who you feel like you know what to do with food, but you're still stuck in the cycle. And inside this program, we work on all of the real things, right? The real triggers underneath the food, right? The guilt, the shame, the fear of losing control, the body checking, the nervous system patterns, right? We work on all of it, right? We rebuild our trust with hunger and fullness. We work on eating without negotiating every bite, creating an eating structure that feels free, but also aligns with your goals, especially weight goals, if that's something that you are working towards. And we practice regulating the emotions that food has been managing for you, which is the super, super important. Right? So if you're interested in that, please check the link in the show notes. That is there. And until next time, I'm Alana, and thank you for listening to Emotional Eating Unwrapped.